Hey everyone, my name is Natasha, and in this video I will be showing you how to build and decorate my plain Jane vanilla cake. This recipe can be found on my website, coconibs.ca. The first thing we're going to do is cut the cakes. You can eyeball this or use a ruler to be more exact. Use a paring knife and a ruler, make a mark on the cake where you want to cut the top off. You can also make multiple marks around the cake at this measurement. Grab a large serrated knife, line it up with one of the marks, and start to cut in a circular and across motion, moving from mark to mark. Make sure to keep your knife as level as possible and do some touch-ups on the cake to make it a little bit more level. Repeat this exact same process to cut the cake into 2 layers. Once you're finished the first cake, you're going to repeat all those same steps with the second cake. You can see that after cutting the cake into 2 layers, I did not keep my knife very level, so the layers are pretty uneven. This will give me a bit of trouble later on when I'm building the cake, so you want to do your best to keep your knife as level as possible. Next, place a slightly damp paper towel and your cake board on your turntable and put a dollop of icing in the center. Put your first cake layer onto the cake board and press down. The first and last layers of the cake should be the bottoms of the original 2 cakes that you started with. Then dab on an even layer of simple syrup using a pastry brush. Next, use a piping bag and the number 808 piping tip to pipe a circle of buttercream around the edge of the cake. Continue in a spiral motion to fill in the rest of the layer. Use an offset spatula to smooth out the buttercream. Hold the spatula still at a 45-degree angle to keep the icing level. Then sprinkle on some crushed up vanilla OMGs. Place the next cake layer on top, then add your simple syrup. For this layer, we're going to add a vanilla pastry cream filling. Pipe a circle of buttercream around the edge of the cake, then fill the center with pastry cream. You want the pastry cream to be lower than the buttercream piped around the edge, because when you add your next cake layer, you will press it down and you won't want pastry cream oozing out the sides. Sprinkle on some more OMGs. Place the next layer on top and repeat the steps from the first layer. Finally, add the last layer on top. Using your offset spatula, spread any buttercream that's hanging out the sides around the cake. Next, grab your piping bag and pipe a small amount of buttercream around and on top of the cake in a zigzag motion. This is going to be for our crumb coat. Spread the icing around the cake with your offset, focusing on completely covering the bottom and creating a lip around the top. Smooth out the icing with your scraper by holding at a 45-degree angle with one hand and spinning the turntable with the other. Finally, pull in the top of the cake with your offset. Using a paring knife, scrape away any crumbs or icing on the cake board, then wipe it clean with a cloth. I apologize for the blurry footage here. My autofocus decided it needed to take a break. Put the cake in the fridge for at least 20 minutes or until the buttercream has formed a crust. For this next part, you will want to make sure your buttercream is smooth and whipped up, so I suggest mixing it on low speed while the cake is cooling in the fridge. Grab your piping bag and the number 808 piping tip and pipe around the outside and top of the cake. Using your offset spatula, pull the icing upwards on the cake, starting at the base. You will again want to create a nice lip at the top of the cake. Start smoothing everything out with your scraper, paying close attention to the angle that the scraper is at. Focus on keeping it straight up and down. Fill in any uneven places. You can even pipe a ring around the top to get that nice lip. Do a few more spins with the scraper to get things really smoothed out. Pull in the top lip and smooth the top out with your offset. Give it a final scrape, then pull the top edge in. Do checks to make sure that the top of the cake is level. You may notice that my final scrape looks a little different than the others, and that is because I use my blowtorch to heat up my scraper. The heat smooths the icing out really nicely for the final scrape. Finally, clean up your cake board with your paring knife and cloth and pop the cake in the fridge for at least 20 minutes. Now it's time for the fancy piping. Grab your ruler and a toothpick. We're going to start with the loops and make them 1 inch long, about halfway down the cake. Line up your ruler without touching the cake and make marks with your toothpick every inch. Using the number 3 piping tip along with firm pressure, begin piping. Start at one mark and slowly move your piping bag to the next, letting the icing fall into a loop. The key here is to use firm pressure. This will take a lot of practice, so don't be discouraged if you need to redo some or it doesn't turn out exactly how you want it to the first time. Repeat with a second layer of loops on top of the first. Next, using the number 18 piping tip, we're going to make the teardrops underneath the connection points of the loops. Start by piping a small dot of icing, then drag it upwards while releasing all pressure. Keep checking to make sure that the teardrops are at the same height as each other. We're going to repeat this same motion, but this time we're using the number 21 tip and piping above the loops themselves. Next, using the same tip, we'll pipe the hearts on top of the previous teardrops. Similar to the teardrops, you're going to pipe a dot of icing, then drag downwards at an angle without any pressure. Pipe a second one next to the first, but drag it down in the opposite direction, creating a heart shape. For the border around the top, we'll use the number 125 tip. Start with the widest part of the tip at the bottom and your piping bag tilted slightly inwards towards the cake. Pipe in a fan motion over top of the hearts. Next, using the 1M tip, we'll pipe the bottom border. Pipe swirls around the bottom, alternating between piping inwards and outwards. Lastly, pipe 5 swirls on top of the cake using the 1M tip. And of course, no cake would be complete without some glitter. If you have edible glitter, give it a sprinkle over the entire cake. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you're enjoying that amazing cake that you just made.